Well, hey, welcome to We Are Victory. If you are watching this video, you are being a part of something very important, and we are so glad that you have taken the time out of your busy schedule and made the commitment to be a part of this gathering. We believe that God is going to use this time to really speak to you about how you come to be a part of this great church. So our desire, really our church, our desire is that you begin to live a life in the fullness of Christ. And if you're around this church for any amount of time, you will begin to hear this phrase over and over and over. Live in the fullness of Christ. Live and move and be in the fullness of Christ. And you may not have heard very many pastors say this, but really our desire at Victory Church is for you to live this out wherever God calls you to be. And maybe, just maybe, God may lead you to a different church. I know that sounds bizarre for a pastor to say. Obviously, our hope is that it's here, but we really want you to be living in the fullness of every single thing that God has for you, using every gift, every talent, every resource to develop and to pour into the local church. Before I begin to tell you about Victory Church, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. Obviously, my name is John Chasteen, and I'm the lead pastor here at this amazing church. I've been married to Michelle, my wife. We've been married coming up on 20 years. It doesn't seem possible. We have two amazing children. My daughter's name is Corey, and my son's name is Jace. And really, before I dive into too much, I want to talk to you about a really powerful word, one that we use a lot around here called trust. And in 2014, I stepped in to be the lead pastor of this church, and I stood on the stage, the very first time I ever took the stage, and I referenced Abraham in Genesis chapter 15, when God comes to Abraham, and it says that Abraham believed and that God credited him righteousness. It means he didn't earn it, he did nothing to deserve it, it was credited to him. And you may not have been there on that day in 2014, but I'm here in front of you face to face in this moment. And I would say the same thing to you that I asked the congregation on November the 1st, 2014. I asked that they would credit me some trust. And for many of you, you don't know me, you're new to Victory Church, you know nothing about me. And my request is that you trust us, that you trust this church. You trust this church with your time and your talent and your treasure. And over time, our goal is to try to earn this trust back to you. They say that trust is gained by the spoonful and lost in the bucketful. And so our hope is that you credit us trust, and then over time, we will begin to earn this trust back to you. Some of the ways that I want to describe to you to begin the process of developing trust is to get really vulnerable with you on some things that you may not have heard church leadership talk about before. Some of you will be very interested in some of this. Some of you may not be interested in any of this, but I think it's important to share because there's a word that goes along with the word trust, and it's the word accountability. And what we want you to know as members of this church is that we have accountability. We believe highly in this idea of accountability. We have a church board, a governing body, a board that provides oversight for the finances and the future of Victory Church, and we are submitted to them. I am submitted to them as the pastor. I don't own this church. This church doesn't belong to me. I serve at the pleasure of a board, a very healthy board, and I want you to know that that's where the level of accountability begins. And then the church is led on the day-to-day by a group of pastors. Pastors that you have gotten to know or that you will get to know. We call them our directional leadership team, or sometimes you may hear it referred to as the DLT. These are made up of 4 individuals, myself included. At the Oklahoma City campus, you know him as Oscar Ortiz. Pastor Oscar serves on the directional leadership team. At the Edmond campus, Pastor Wade Smith serves on the DLT. And then also a man that's more behind the scenes. You may not ever see him on a platform, but he is carrying a heavy load in the operational leadership of this church, and his name is Pastor Dale Swanson. He's been with the church for nearly 20 years, just an amazing man of God. So the vision, the day-to-day of the church is led by this DLT. Going down into another layer, I want to get even deeper vulnerable with you to let you know how my salary is set. And I know that may be weird. You've never heard a senior pastor talk about their salary openly before. I want you to know that there's several layers of accountability in this area for myself and really it starts with outside referrals. I don't set my own salary. The directional leadership team doesn't even set my salary. The board doesn't set my salary. They approve my salary, but we actually go even further outside than that, and we hire a third-party firm who does a research study. They go and they look at the geographical area, they look at the size of the church, they look at the pastor's experience and the pastor's degree, and they come to the board and they present three options. And I know I'm going into detail here. They present three options. The board then selects one of the tiers, and the pastor's salary is then assigned based on this three-tier method of accountability. So I want you to know about some of these levels of accountability. We also, our church finances, we obviously have an internal accounting system, and then we also employ an outside CPA that helps provide oversight for the church finances. And then every year, once a year, our finances are reviewed by a completely outside independent firm for additional accountability, for additional oversight. I have no access to the bank accounts. I'm not a signer on the bank accounts. I have zero access to any of that. And I know, a lot of this is very in-depth, but I'm trying to cultivate an atmosphere of trust. And I want you to know that we are serious about trust. Another area that I need accountability in, just like you need pastors, I need pastors too. Every pastor needs a pastor. And so I have pastors. I have spiritual men in my life who pour into me, both inside the church, spiritually pouring into me, and outside the church, pastors who pastor me, other people that are pastoring large churches and pastoring other congregations. And so my two pastors, my two specific pastors are Pastor Jimmy Evans. He is a man of this house. You'll probably see him preach here. He serves on our board. He's an amazing man of God. We kind of see him at Victory Church as kind of a father of the house. So he's my pastor. And then I'm lucky enough to have two pastors. And my other pastor is Pastor Craig Rochelle, who pastors a church called Life Church here in the metro area, who is another man who just pours into me in leadership and how to lead well, how to steward God's resources well. So those are my levels of accountability. You'll also see another layer at play inside the church on a yearly basis. Every year at the end of January, we do something called the State of the Church Address. Around the same time every year, you'll hear the President of the United States get up and give a State of the Union address. And really what they're saying is this is where we've been, this is where we are, and this is where we're going. And so every year around the end of January, I will get up in front of the entire church, and a lot of what I'm saying now, you'll hear a repeat of about layers of accountability, about what God has done in the past year, where we sense God moving us into the future. And this will give a continual oversight of accountability, building trust, reviewing where God is taking us, but also striving for where God is pushing us to in the future. So I wanted to begin with just some of these layers of accountability, some of these general layers of what drives us so that we build trust. Trust is a very powerful currency that we want you to have in your church. If you're thinking about making this church your home church, we want you to have all confidence in the leadership of this church.